All right, it's 5 o'clock. Call to order the meeting of the joint board session meeting, January 9th, 2018. Are there any additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters or pressing matters that will need ratification at a future meeting? No. Guess not. Approved minutes of December 21st, 2017.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion first? No? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Public comment on items not on the agenda. Yes, Pat.
Yeah, Pat Fowler, Village Square Booksellers. It came to our notice that the movie theater was running a matinee at 1 o'clock on Christmas Eve and the day before. And it pretty much took up the parking space and kind of killed all the business when that's kind of the busiest shopping days of the years. So I would like to request that next year that we look at not having an early matinee like that. It's different having the 5 o'clock movie, but having a 1 or 2 o'clock movie when we only have a certain amount of time for retail and restaurants and stuff, but the retail, I mean, basically there was no parking spaces, so people just headed to Keene. We just lost a lot of business in all of the stores. We all talked about it later and we didn't realize what had happened, and it just suddenly dropped. And I have statistics that will show that. So just be careful in December of having those 1 o'clock movies, that having 100 people upstairs impacts us by maybe $20,000 or $30,000 in sales.
Okay, thank you.
I did talk to Rick Andrews about that, and we met,
We were
and went over those
able to
numbers, and it's
answer
precipitous
Yeah.
drop, and so it's something this time next year needs to be discussed clearly.
Yeah, I think the 5 o'clock show is fine, but having the 1 o'clock Saturday and Sunday show has a huge impact when we're just sending people to the big box stores because they don't have any parking.
Okay, fine. Any other comment? All right, moving on to the agenda. Manager's goals. All right, we called this meeting because we have a short, 6 months, not quite now, with Shane before we move on to another, and we'll also be doing the process of looking for a new manager. So we wanted to make sure that we can talk together about what are some of the key issues that and projects that need to be really focused on in this time frame that we have, because there will be a bit of transition time that we have to focus on too when we get a new manager. So that's the reason that we've called this meeting together today. So I guess, I don't know how we want to start. Just
If Shane maybe could just say what he had planned for the next few
Yeah.
months. I mean, we have budget season for
Both of us.
finalizing for town and starting with village, but I guess Shane, just if you could.
Yeah, I was prepared mostly to listen this evening, but yeah, absolutely putting to bed the town budget, preparing for a town meeting, but also, you know, we'll be starting tonight with the trustees on the budget process for the village, so we need to work that through, and that's going to take a lot of effort as well. Those are the two primary projects that need to get done. But in the meantime, we're also working with Great River Hydro and trying to work with them on not only settlement of past cases, but also discussions about assessment in the future. That's a key project we're working on. Several other things we're working from a financial end, particularly with the trustees working on utility cash flows and rates is another major project being worked on. Those are ones that just immediately come to mind that we're focusing on.
Thanks, Shane.
And what are some of the timelines on that, just so I mean, I know obviously our budget will be the 16th, that we really have to put that to bed by next meeting.
Right.
And then the village budget, what is your target?
We don't even have
date for
we don't even have a schedule for that yet, but keep with last year's schedule, if not enhance that a little bit. It'll be a very different budget this year because of the new arrangements that we have for the fire department. but at the same time, we also now have a finance director, so in some ways it'll be made easier. Last year, I had to put together a whole new spreadsheet for the village, and that's already done, so it'll be a little bit easier on the village side. But we'll start that in January, as soon as we put to bed the town budget.
And then the hydro, do we have a timeline
I think we're
on
pretty
that?
close to settlement of several different issues on that. I mean, in fact, possibly all the issues on that. I think that's within the next month, 2 maybe.
Were there any, I mean, I guess particularly the town, were there any like specific issues that you guys wanted to have focused on?
Gaetano?
We talked about it the other night, but making sure we get the bids out for the
Right.
square Westminster Street. Still trying to move forward with the size, weight, speed of vehicles coming through, especially if we spend all this money resurfacing, but mostly making sure we get the project out to bid.
Yeah, what's the timeline we have for that? Yeah, and end of the month, first?
January, February, and we'd like to get it out as soon as we can.
We should probably, I don't know, can we put like
Some of it depends also on how what we do in the budget. I mean,
Right.
it depends, we may have certain different amounts of money in the budget that would be usable. And we could extend the project some, depending on how that works out, but.
Yeah, so we're thinking maybe mid-February?
The latest, I would think.
The latest, to get that out and have some type of plan for projects over the summer.
Yeah. and,
Mid-February?
To what degree do we include sidewalks in the downtown project? We do have additional money for sidewalks this coming year. So yeah, we need to have a comprehensive sit-down internally to work on the project and present that to the board as a here's our request for proposals, and make sure that the board's on with us on that. Another project also is 10 Church Place. We were able to get someone to go inside, and actually they've already produced an analysis of not just 10 Church Place, but 10.5 Church Place. We also had Hyde Street and Old Terrace, all done by the same guy over a couple of days period. And so we've got all that information in, and it's not as bad as we had anticipated with 10 Church Place, which is good. We do have asbestos, a little bit in 10.5, not a whole lot. And also at Hyde Street, there's some. So we're going to put those two out to bid together for remediation. But for Old Terrace, it's clean, and we can move forward on the demolition of that one.
With that number, we approved a couple bids for those.
Yep, we're good to go.
So
with
that
those.
was dependent on asbestos.
Yeah.
Right, so
There is-
one of them, on Old Terrace, we could just go forward on that. We need to get the Department of Health to give us okay. But then with, with Hyde and 10.5 Church, we're going to put those out to bid together for remediation. And it's not a whole lot. It's a 12 by 12 in one spot, in a closet and the other, so it's not a whole lot. But we will need to get from Department of Health, they're going to have to authorize a work plan for 10 Church Place. That work will not be able to get done till the spring, just given the condition of the property. But there are potential uses for those properties that, that I was hoping to talk to the Select Board about at its next meeting as potential users, and that's probably something that should be done in executive session.
Just to back up with the square Westminster Street, don't we have the funding for the scope of work we want done? Isn't it, we may get a better price if we get the bids out early?
Absolutely.
So we should do that, and then if we come up with additional funding to go further, Bold Terraced, that would be a separate.
Right, that's what we did last year. We bid it out in 6 different segments, and we would do the same thing. And, you know, depending on how the vote goes for next year's budget, we may be able to top that off depending on where that is, but.
But we're not waiting on any of this, the
No.
current budget to go move
No,
forward with this.
we've got a commitment from the state for $175,000. In our budget, we have $252,000.
We allotted, yeah.
And then we carried over 20,000, no, of that 96,000, there's
Yeah.
only a certain amount that was for pavings. Most of the balance was sidewalks, so.
Now, in them bid specs, we'll have to be up to date on the current mix that we're going to be
Yeah,
using, so the
yeah.
state doesn't have an issue with that?
The state will have to sign off on what that
Okay.
mix is, yeah, because they're the ones paying for it. But yeah, we've already got the bid put together from
Yeah.
last year. We would need to just change, you know, some of the order of business and, you know, how do we include sidewalks? Is the sidewalks a separate bid, or is that part of the larger bid? There's different ways to do that, so we'll talk that over.
So target date, mid-February. That's-
At the latest.
That seems fine, or you want earlier?
Well, it seems like that specific project, we're not waiting for anything. It could be done sooner.
Well, I mean, there's just logistical work that has to be done, too.
Yeah, I mean,
Does that have to be written
I
or
want
no?
to put this budget to, there's not too much to do, but there's, you know, we want to get this budget and town meeting vote warning together over the next couple of weeks.
Which is, next meeting.
But yeah, it won't take much, but it's.
So we
there's
can, we
other-
can discuss this particular project in more detail in our first meeting
You can
in
do it, you
February.
can talk about it next week, you know, even if you want.
We really don't have time next
Right.
week, unfortunately, but our first week in February, and then we can get,
Well,
our first meeting in February, and then we can get that out.
We'll try to have a draft of the request for proposals ready for that first meeting.
Yeah, that would be good. Church Street, what was the other one? Is there any, Cass, is there?
What's the,
Oh.
sorry,
That's okay, go ahead.
the status, the Green Street, that did go out to,
The green, where the house.
For
is
sale?
removed.
Oh,
we talked about
I just-
auction.
Well, we tried the auction,
Right.
we were just going to do for sale by owner, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yes.
And we were gonna have volunteers to show it and whatnot, or if that
Yeah,
came up.
I haven't done a thing on it, just haven't done a thing.
So there's another item
Yeah,
to try to wrap up.
sell 38 Green would be a good, another one.
So Church Green, the
Hyde.
other Hyde.
Old Terrace.
Old Terrace.
Old Terrace.
Paving.
Paving.
Was Hapgood finalized? Is that what's the
No,
deal on that?
that's
With the
still-
extension?
Languishing, isn't it?
Bankruptcy is still the
Still-
last
it's
word.
still hanging out
you
there,
know.
okay.
Well, the bank asked us to give a final number to them on what they may owe, and I think they owed zero to the town and village. I think they got paid up some time ago.
Cass, is that?
I guess I can sort of get into line behind what Gaetano was talking about, that those body of concerns, road, paving, traffic. I guess for my specific input, I'd like to narrow it down to our ongoing goal of weight limit signage. I understand we've discussed it back and forth, and we've made some movement in that direction in a desire to get it perfect. Personally, I think the time has come and gone for perfect. I think we just need to get it close to right and get it out there. Even beyond the road wear and architectural concerns, we should not have tractor trailer through traffic in the village. There's just no reason for it. And it seems to be getting incrementally worse every year. Beyond the road surface and architectural concerns, it's safety. It's bad for our safety profile. It puts pedestrians at increased risk. There's just no reason for it. And I understand there were concerns about wording and placement and all those factors. But again, I think we just need to quickly narrow down how we need to do it and get it out there. I think this is a case, and I'm not advocating, flaunting state authority, but I think this is a case where, if need be, it's going to be quicker and better to ask forgiveness and permission. We know we have the authority. We want to make sure we do it right, but I think we've taken too long worrying about getting it exactly perfect. I think that signage needs to get out there. We need to get it out there on Westminster Street before the red light intersection, and we need to get it back up on Rockingham Street about across from Steuben to let tractor trailer traffic, through traffic, not deliveries, through traffic know that they should stay straight on Atkinson and continue north on 5 or coming south on 5, make arrangements to take that bridge. It's just, we discussed it for too long. And I think we really need to narrow it down. And I would like to see something up there and basically speaking our authority towards this end in the next 60 days. And I don't understand why that can't happen.
Did you have something to add to that?
Well, yeah, in a roundabout way, somewhat respectfully disagree. I realize, and we've been talking about it for a little bit, having served in both capacities here on these boards. One of the things I found that did work was, and I think one of the previous administrators or managers had sent a letter to the trucking companies or contacted the trucking companies, and they'd pretty much adhered to staying out of the downtown. No, I don't dispute, it's always, when you get big trucks going through, there's awareness of safety, et cetera. But discretionary-wise, I think if we're going to put signage up, it's got to be in accordance. We shouldn't be hastily, whether it be the trustees or the select board, just throwing up and, so that's sort of a plan for the worst with hope for the best. But the flip side of that is there's an economy that in this downtown area that depends upon some of that vehicular traffic. Some of them I've followed, for example, since this came up a few months ago, and had this conversation with another official. But I spent some time down here, and I followed some of these tractor trailers. I followed some of the dump trucks. Maybe at times, with my vehicle having a calibrated speedometer, you can peg the speed of the vehicles. So maybe the speed's a little bit of a concern, but I didn't see that much. But I think there's a local economy that's dependent on some of those vehicles that we're highlighting here, because they go down to the island and they fuel up at a depot down there. So there's a business down there that's dependent upon these vehicles. In fact, somebody had mentioned to me, well, there goes a tractor trailer. That's one of the things you guys were talking about at your meeting. So I specifically followed that one that day. And he wasn't hauling anything. He was going down and refueling down at Coda's. So, they have a business that's dependent on some of these trucks.
We talked about all that.
Yeah, but I mean,
We've talked about all that.
how
It's
are
been
we
on the
going to-
agenda.
Right, but how
and
are we
there's been
going to-
action from a motion made at the agenda to address this.
Right, we have to address it, but I think we have to,
Overloaded log truck is not fueling up or delivering.
right. But when we're talking about, tractor trailers and other vehicles of that size, you're going to see some down through here, and
Well,
it's because they're refueling.
Let's be specific about size. When I talk about tractor trailers, I'm talking about 18-wheelers, 53-foot long vehicles, but not to mention the cab. I really don't think that they're coming on down Westminster Street to go fuel up down at Coda and Coda's. I see them rolling through. I'm talking about the rolling through traffic, just the rolling through.
Donna?
We've already discussed all this, and there's been action to follow. We've talked about who should be coming through, the size and weight.
Right.
We've talked about all that.
Yep.
We're not denying anyone fueling at Coda's. At the place, we're not denying
Yeah.
anything. What we're trying to do is put notifications so that we could essentially somehow enforce. If it's not illegal, we can't enforce it.
And as far
We're trying to
as
figure out what the load is.
So-
as far as going through channels, though.
We've already.
We could talk about this again. We've talked
Sure.
about this for a while. But, so
That's my
the
point.
issue is we're looking for tasks to put on a 6-month list for Shane.
I think that was Cass's point.
Yeah,
He said,
so
like, he'd
that
like to
was,
see
is
some
something
movement.
that, right, that is something that
I-
requires a conversation with
Yeah,
Mike
I-
and the state, and then we
Yep.
can get the signs ordered and up, correct?
Yes, just one thing about the signs, that they must be in conformance with the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control
Yep.
Devices, as you're
Yep.
well aware. So we
live-
can't just,
I live by that
Yep.
booklet
we
every
can't
day.
just slap
Yeah,
them
we
up.
know that, but it's, yeah,
Yeah, and
so,
I've gone out with Mike Hines and Ron Lake to scope out where they need to be. There's a sign expert who does this every day for DOT, who's going to come down and meet with us on this. But there's also a discrepancy in the law related to village districts and what applies, either state or local. So I'm working on that with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns,
Yeah.
who gave me an opinion which I don't necessarily agree
I think that's
with.
very important. Could we make that a priority?
it sounds like
a
it's
task
already,
priority?
it's in the
Yeah,
works,
I'm-
There's
so,
a
working-
discrepancy in some issues which they have to come to conclusion before they can put the signs up.
right.
So we may need to do more work and determine what the weight is, what we would like the weight to be. Right now,
We may have to have a whole
it's
nother,
unclear.
we may have to adopt a statute, a ordinance
Yeah.
for the downtown. We may not have to, so that's what we're trying to figure out. But it's one of the many, many things
A
going on.
reference for that, as Cass had mentioned, the 53-foot trailer is, Woodstock, I believe, has some type of an ordinance regulating travel there, through there with a 53-foot semi-trailer. So that may be a source of information for you
Right.
municipally, or,
I'd hate to think that issue is easier for a town overall than a village specifically.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds, I mean, right now to get it on the.
I'm working
task
on
list,
it
it's the
on a
task
daily
list,
basis, yeah.
And we can touch base at our sometime February meeting to, hopefully, we've made some progress on that front. And it could mean it's something that we need to talk to our legislative representatives. If there's something that's not right in the state law that many towns are dealing with, that's something we may also need to do when we see them.
That's from me.
Anything else from you? That pretty much covers, I think, on our end. Let me just check. But go ahead.
Do you have any village, I guess, we'll start with Deb.
Well, my concern, not being specific, is that, well, being specific but not about a specific goal, is that these are supposed to be measurable. They need to be in writing. We need to have a list that, between us and the manager, and we approve, we are good with the list, so that we have measurable goals, not just goals that go on and on and on, like our regular reports that just don't get done. I mean, we're talking about the signage and stuff, which has been, that one point has been going on for some months. Other types of things like that they're not getting accomplished. You need measurable dates. You want 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180. You need to put them on there, and they need to be in writing. In order to, you can't measure a goal if you haven't got a date on it. And if there's a reason for an extension of a goal, you need to discuss that. So I'm more about the process, which, we talked to Incuda about how we need to do this, and not just talk about stuff that just winds up getting slapped in notes, but isn't measurable and isn't in writing. I mean, that's structured. That's what he asked for. And
But I
we're not
think-
doing that right now.
I think, well,
But
from
we
what I heard
were
on
saying
the
that we had certain dates,
February for the road bid.
For the
Right,
road.
but they need to be in writing, so a list comes back to both boards,
We
and
have-
we look
yeah,
at the
we
list,
have
and we go, yeah, we're
Carrie
good with the
writing all this
dates.
down right
Okay.
I mean,
now.
that's a measurable goal.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking for.
And the Great River Hydro, that's within 2 months, was the estimate, 1 to 2 months.
60
I'd
days.
say 2 months is fine,
And we can have like a list subject to approval for the 30th.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Oh, it's-
water, wastewater.
Is it Steve's turn? Because I'm
Oh,
done.
No, you're fine.
I'm done.
Continue, that's okay.
The water, wastewater financials, i.e. cash flows, and then decisions on rates. When do you think we'll have the financials?
Ron will be here at the the trustees meeting, and he can answer that more specifically, since I've handed that off to him. I would say in the next, gotta be within this next month, has to be. I've asked for it to be within 2 or 3 weeks. So
Okay,
I
so
would say
the-
certainly
so the
my goal, end of January.
Financials at the end of January, and then a decision on rates maybe by the end of February or something, or?
That would be up to the trustees, but yeah, I think that's fair.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay. The budget, I know we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight at our meeting.
Yep.
What I would like to request is that, that the board have the opportunity to meet with the police and fire chief and the utility heads to discuss their thoughts. The reason, what I'm getting at is that if the typical process is they talk to you, Shane, and then you put their numbers down, and then we get to see them that way, I'd like to get us involved in the discussions before the numbers get put down. I think it's our budget, and I think that the department heads should have a feel for, if they've got ideas, to get a feel for what our thoughts are on those ideas. I think that's very important for budgeting, and I'd like to see that done on this go-round. I don't know how it's been done in the past. I've never been involved in it.
Maybe we should talk about that at the trustees meeting when we talk about, I was asking for some goals.
When is our drop dead date for a finished budget? I mean, we got a May annual meeting.
It all kind of depends on the printer.
Is it like 6 weeks ahead? I mean,
A budget,
It's probably
Mid-April?
we're 6 weeks ahead of ours.
They have to
so-
be out 10 days to 2 weeks before the meeting, and the printer needs it 2 weeks before that. So I would say by the
so a
beginning
month
of
to 5
April.
weeks?
beginning of April.
Okay.
Beginning of April.
Beginning of April, okay.
A good amount, it's a good amount of time. But it goes quickly, as we found.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
no, I was going to just ask if anyone had anything else.
The other thing is, I don't know if this has ever been brought up, but I think this is, the joint meeting is the place to bring it up, is that, do we have any feel for what's happening at the school department? I mean, we're all very concerned about, our expenses and those types of things. I know Deb is on the high school board, but I think have we ever invited the superintendent to
Yes.
meet with us to
Yes.
go over?
That's been done.
I've picked up bits and pieces as it related to there's a sequence that the school has to go through, and the first one is the SU budget. And I've heard some things about the SU budget that are troubling in terms of, who's worried about expenses, this type of thing. I know Deb is, but, so I think it'd be helpful for us in our capacity as, trustees and select board members to make sure that the school department that we're watching and we're concerned about what's going on there. And so I just throw that out, not so much as a goal for Shane, but I think just as a topic for discussion for our boards, particularly the joint board type of thing.
For what it's worth, he and I do talk quite often about different things. So.
Well, you're
You know,
bound to with the finances.
Yeah,
the
we
way
have
it's
a
tied
good
up.
working relationship.
This is more of, that budget process is also probably getting close to the end.
They're about end. We just finished, we just passed the, well, I didn't, as I know, but the high school board budget just got passed. The SU board had already passed theirs and then passed it down to so I don't know when Rockingham and the others meet, probably all.
Do you have any
this month.
sense of increases that?
Well, the increase, well, we're looking at a I guess
topic.
8 to 9, yeah, it is, but just 8 to 9 cents for the, from the state will be coming down education.
No, I mean the expense budgets for the,
The SU's total budget's $1 million higher than it was last year.
well,
Because they changed the food source, they're not using the same contractor, and they have
they're
additional
proposing to do all
expenses.
these things.
Yeah, additional expenses because of special ed. So it's about $300,000 special ed and about $800,000 in food changes, because the whole food plan is changed. They've gotten rid of the cafe services. So that'll
How
have
about the high
impact.
school?
Specifically, the high schools is up probably about $100,000, no, a couple $100,000 higher.
So if we were to have the superintendent come, are we have any time on our joint board meeting? We really don't, do we? Our agenda?
You have a lot on it already.
On the 30th, yeah.
And
I don't think the Vermont
Add one
state
more
reps
to
are
it.
going to be able to make it down because they're
No.
in session, but we were thinking that would be a time to discuss, but,
They're not going to be able to,
Yeah.
because I was copied on an email
yeah.
about it.
So-
They're in session, so.
You know,
I mean,
the
because
Win-
our next meeting is quite late, so if we're going to
Yeah,
have it, we
I just
have
want to
do
say
it now.
about that on camera, the Windsor County reps came to their meeting in Chester, and they
Yeah.
all came. You know,
Well, yeah, that was before they started their session.
both houses, I know, but.
I mean, we
it's
didn't
like,
plan ahead of
why-
time.
You know, why can't we get the Windsor County people to?
We could, we just didn't plan ahead of time, that's why.
You're also going to have, Shane's going to add another item tonight. The auditor will be here on the 30th.
So that would might
Yes,
take some
takes
time.
everything.
That will take some time.
too.
Well, I mean, we can
So-
also do another, if we feel we need another special meeting before one of our meetings to have him come in.
Well, the school budget is all based on town, and they could come, I mean, it doesn't affect us that way, but the select board, they could come to a select board, and Chris could come to one of those. It's gonna happen in March, right, so.
Right. Okay, well, we can discuss that as a select board.
Is there anything manager goal-wise, Steve?
Yeah, I just, I've brought this up before at our meetings and as well. I really think both boards, particularly the village, considering what we've gone through this last year, and moving forward, we need to address what we're going to do from a revenue perspective in this village and in this town, because these costs, our costs are only going to be going up. So when that piece of revenue is taxes, we've got to figure out what's going on here. I would like to explore within the village what we can do within state laws and things as far as moratoriums on converting large single-family to multifamilies. These dramatically impact our services and our school systems. We got a list from the listers of the multifamily, the apartments in town, and I don't want to come across as targeting a particular demographic, but you got to understand that if you take a property that is paying a certain amount of money and you renovate it, and now you put 4 families in there, and because of the way our state taxes go, your property tax on that piece of property is going to go down because it's now considered a second home, and not a business. So your taxes go down, and you're impacting your services across the board. That's never going to change from the state level. We've got to see if there's something we can do locally, and we've really got to get your handle on a revenue stream. I know it doesn't equate to business, but if in business, if you don't have a good control and an idea of your revenue stream, and it's dependent on things that are outside of your influence, that puts you at way too much risk, and that's where we're at right now. We've made some huge cuts to the fire department. I think it's going to be great, moving forward, going to this model, and we're saving, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but those other costs, the police department, all of that, it's all manpower. It's all going to continue. Insurance is going to go up. Any of those things, their salaries, that's all going to increase. We're going to be right back here if we don't do anything about it. If you keep pushing it on the back burner, which both of these boards have done for 30 years. They didn't see this in the 70s. There's nothing accounting for inflation at all. We're playing with this model, and it's broken. It doesn't work. So we need to address it.
It sounds like it might be a,
Yeah, how would we phrase this as a goal? Is like is there something that Shane could write a report on of what our
I think,
options
well,
are?
I think, the initial stuff in the village, again, let's see what we can do legally within the village, within, the state for, like I said, no more rental properties. We're done. We don't need any more. We've gotten over 800 and change apartments in town. We don't need any more.
Can we have this?
Let's stop it. Can we do that? And that's what I'm kind of getting at. Where, how can we dictate properties like that?
That's
can
a
we put
zoning
something in
issue.
place?
Yeah.
So.
Zoning issue.
Right, and that's what I'd like to do, is start engage, let's engage the zoning board and things like that, and see what we can do to kind of stop this. And then, we've got to get creative. We've got to, wouldn't it be great to be, we've discussed this before. What if, Rockingham were, the most cellularly connected town in the state of Vermont? What if we erected our own towers on town property? Because I'll tell you right now, because I've got, in the company I work for, when we hire, I've got 13 people that work for me across the country. When we hire, we don't even pay for landlines anymore. They have to have cell connectivity. I couldn't actually get my job that I have right now with the connectivity we've got in the village. And so, and those are jobs, I hire people across the country. My average salary for those folks is $97,000. If you can bring people in and say, hey, you could live in southern Vermont, we've gotten our taxes in hand, at least in this portion, you could have your connectivity, and you could be making a decent wage and putting money back into the community here. But I would never recommend anybody, coming to that. So is that something, it's things like that,
Yeah, well,
that's a revenue generator.
But it also sounds like something that should be in these town plan discussions that are, what's the status with that?
We're
at
just
this
getting,
point?
gearing up for that stuff.
Just gearing up for
Yeah.
that stuff. So that's not something that's going to be on the plate.
It's going to
Shane's
be
plate
in
for
the
next-
year.
In the year.
In the
But-
year, yeah.
Right.
But that's not really a manager.
No, it's
Right,
not.
no,
issue.
it's-
Yeah. No, things like that, that's going to be board creativity and.
Mhm. Well, it
The
could
one
be inviting
question,
in.
though, the one question that I think, more from a revenue standpoint, is that I think we know, at least currently anyway, that in this town, a multifamily house, based on the market evaluation, tends to be lower than a single-family
It is,
house.
yeah.
Okay? That's based on sale price. It would seem to me that another valid method of evaluating the value of the home, of the business, the rental property, is a P&L approach. In other words, what is the revenue less expenses of this facility, and at what discount rate what value does that create? And tax at the higher of the values. I think that's one item to explore from a revenue
That's the list.
But that's the
standpoint.
list.
That's the listers.
Yeah, so, again, we have to focus, there's a lot of things. And
Yeah.
and I think Shane at one point you had mentioned, having a session where you can just put out all these ideas, where you've got, what you want the town to look like, what you want it to bring to the town. You mentioned some other town had done such a,
Well, the other part of the
what was that?
revenues
I
is.
can't remember what they
is-
called it, but
Is charging fees for different services.
Right.
so that if
but it
you-
was part of a brainstorming session of sorts.
Yeah, they have a
that-
French
Yeah,
name for it,
what
I
I-
can't think what it's called.
What I shared with you at one point was what another municipality had done in a hiring process for a manager, getting people together to say, what do you want as a manager and work from there. But there are other municipalities, I know Putney used to do it, is we have a meeting with all the different boards and committees together once a year, listers, cemetery commissioners, everybody, and planning board, zoning, everybody together, which is always a nice thing to do from time to time, but,
Yeah.
Can we, could we arrange such a meeting
We've done it
by
here before.
the end of May?
We've done it here before.
Yeah.
We had the
Yeah.
schools involved in the planning board,
Or
zoning.
end of
and-
April, or, some,
Prior to your meeting and.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least after the budget, because if something like this is something that'd be great to plan moving forward, but if we can't fit it in during all these budget things, we can at least have that meeting before next year's round of business. So I think that could be something that would be achievable.
There's other things being worked on, is we do still have unresolved some labor relations issues. And we still have the police union, and we do have an issue with the fire union as well, the Labor Relations Board. So those are two things that need to continue to be worked on. There's a couple other cases out there as well. The Water Department has a legal case, the Sicard project, and there's plenty of other things out there that aren't coming to mind. Again, I was prepared to listen to the board members, but there's plenty out there that's a lot of balls in the air, every single day.
Well, I think it would be good for our next meeting to sort of put this on a sort of a calendar. I mean, obviously things might change, especially when you're talking about those. They have a different parties involved with maybe a different timeline than we would hope for them to resolve. But to get this all on sort of a calendar where we can, and a checklist, so that we can get these things moving and off the table and as soon as we can. Even though there will be other, obviously, ongoing things. But is there anything else?
So, meeting tonight, it was about manager goals, and it seems that the select board has given some pretty clear goals. Are they in writing and dated? I mean, is that?
That's what Carrie will be doing, and she will.
With a completion date.
We'll pull it together for us to approve at our next meeting, our joint meeting, or, I mean, select board, we can approve probably next week if we needed to, but, yeah.
And we'll have one on the 23rd, so.
Yeah.
It'd be good for the boards to revisit that, maybe at the joint board meeting, because there's a town and a village, so they both need attention in
Right.
6 months.
Yeah, like, so we can look at them individually, but on the 30th, then we can look at it and see, like, why is one goal pushed aside? It's because,
Right,
you know,
we can discuss it,
we can
fight over has the priority.
Right. We can work something out.
Is there any other?
Just,
yeah.
could we, are you going to schedule, or you or Miles going to schedule a organizational meeting for the manager search?
We will. It's just, I mean, on the select board side, our focus is just to get this budget. We have to have it done by next Tuesday, so that's the focus now. But it might be something we can discuss at our joint board meeting, or we could just schedule something for after the 16th.
I'd prefer to do it after. I wouldn't take long. I mean, just, kind of get organized in terms of what we're going to.
Yeah, just draft up an ad if there's any other community members that
Right.
would like to see it.
So that would have to go, that could go in the paper next week.
And then maybe by the 30th, we could just warn a first meeting. Is that too ambitious?
I don't think so.
To add to get people to participate, or for the hiring of the position?
No, to participate on the committee.
So you want to let people to write in if they're interested in being on the committee, then you're going to decide
Yes.
who to have on the committee? and
On
then
our
you'll
joint
schedule a
meeting on the
meeting.
30th. Yeah.
Okay.
So that would have to go out in next week's paper, probably.
Yep, could be,
Yeah.
What's today?
The 10th.
Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, if I get it out by Friday, it'll be in next week's.
Next week's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, Center Village will be busy with our budget soon, but
Yeah.
it needs to happen, so. Is there anything else? Sorry.
Nope, yeah, sorry. Anything else? All right. Now, we're going to go over, is there any other business other than what we just discussed here about manager goals? All right, agenda items for the next joint meeting. We have, as you said, quite a few things. Chamber and VIFTA, Vermont State reps, as you said, they would not be able to get here, but we could still have a discussion of maybe some of the issues that we
That they
feel
have on
that
their
they
plate,
need.
yeah.
That's on their plate, and then, I mean, they did offer to call in, but the sound quality is usually not so
Bad.
good. But some of the issues maybe that we think we should be attentive to, and also they should focus on. Traffic safety, V-Trans. Somebody gonna come from V-Trans? I think we had asked
That was
maybe.
Cass, that was.
Cass?
Mhm.
Somebody's gonna come from V-Trans for that?
I'll get back on that. I tried to make inroads, and it seems like the holidays pretty much quashed my efforts. I'll get back on that. Yes.
Okay.
And Cass, maybe you and I can talk about who some of the people are, because I've been in contact with different people on signs and speeds and weights and all.
I know the ideal fellow would be
Marcos?
Marcos Miller. He's very busy this time of year.
Right.
I'll put in a call and see if we can't get him here. He would be the ideal one.
And
If
Amy
not
Campbell.
him, he probably has a name or two that he can shuffle me over to.
And
Alright.
he was just mentioning Amy, her too.
I doubt you'll see Amy break free. She's got too big a desk, but I'll give it a shot. I know Amy.
All right, public safety, roadway limits, lighting. Was there somebody who was gonna pull in for that?
I mean, it's like the 5th time we've
Yeah.
talked about this.
Yeah, I know. But I
don't
mean, I stay,
understand.
well, I mean, if it's not to be
Is there an
discussed,
update that's happening?
I don't know.
By the
It was
30th,
just
maybe?
This is a list that has been growing since our last meeting. We haven't had a full joint meeting for months, so that's why it's on there.
August, I think, was your last
August.
Well, those 3 and 4 in some ways
Are
are
the same.
Related.
are related, but I know that BIFTA is working on applying for a grant
Yeah.
to do some downtown design work for plantings and crosswalks and,
Additional
you name it, lighting and all that.
Discuss compensatory time, discuss insurance incentive, those are two other.
And then the auditor.
Yeah, I
Auditor.
wanted to meet with the auditor. He's available, he's coming from Maine, so if he could do it
Do that.
early is better. But we do have draft audits that came in over the holidays. Ron has gone over every piece of it, and we're going to try to connect with them on Friday to, we want to add a few things, and we had questions about a few things, and they would finalize, and we would send it out to everybody. So the goal would be to have the final to everybody, 5 days before that meeting. But they are in draft form right now, so we do have them.
Anything
I'm
else?
sorry, backtracking for just a moment. Light bulb just went on. Subjects 3 and 4. Could I request having our highway department chief, Mike Hines, here?
Sure, of course.
I think he would have a lot of good, invaluable input on those points.
You can also have the police chief here as well.
Yeah. Anything else? At this point, no. Okay. No executive session is necessary, I don't believe. Call to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned.